It's that time again. It's time for another Saturday night special where we talk about everything rockhounding related. I feel so busy lately. Winter is definitely my busy time. Got all kinds of cool projects working on. Lots of stuff to touch on this week. We are starting to see a little glimmer of spring, maybe, possibly, like highs in the 40s out here. So it's got me doing some trip planning and doing some thinking of where we're going to be going this spring, doing some fun trip planning. I'm trying to spend more time doing my plotting of courses, I guess, which really starts to get the mind working about like what the summer is going to look like. And I'm very, very excited. I have some good spring trips planned for me and Sarah, so I can't wait. I'm going a little nuts, a little cabin fever. Yeah, but that said, that doesn't stop me from staying productive in the wintertime, you know? This past week, I started reading this, okay? I started reading on siderite and associated minerals from the Columbia River basalt at Spokane, Washington. It's pretty short. It's from 1923. And one thing that we did was we found this. Okay, so right here, that is right in downtown Spokane. I'm going to call it downtown Spokane, Washington, right on the other side of the river from downtown. So it's downtown. And this is taken right down there, and man, does it look different today. Yeah, so it's there's a Holiday Inn built on top of it now, and they've backfilled some of this in, but it's definitely it, which it's kind of cool to see something 100 years later and look at the change and all of that. But the reason we went there is because of the siderite that they have found. Obviously, we didn't find any siderite like this specifically, but as I do more research into the topic, it's fun to be able to kind of go stand in the places of people into the same things that you are, you know? I think we kind of forget some of this historical connection that you can have with rockhounding, mineralogy, geologists of the past, and read what they wrote and learn. You can learn so much. It's just kind of cool to, like, you know, go stand where they were standing and look at the same thing, the same rocks. Some of the siderite, what it kind of looks like out here, it can look just like this. This is a piece that I have, and some of these, so this is a rare form of a relatively rare form of siderite, spherosiderite, and some of this can actually be entirely clear, which is very cool. I try to find the image, but I might have to just retake it. But some of these in here, the little piece of spherosiderite, the little bubble, if you will, is 50% clear and 50% black, which that's kind of cool to see. I cut this piece, so it's a nice piece of my collection of basalt, and some bigger examples of it from the Dixie Roadcut. Those are some nice, good examples. I would go back to Dixie. I learned a lot. I'll drop a link down below in the description box of this video about the Dixie Roadcut. I know it's a little niche for some people, but I think it's actually pretty cool, and it does still look real, like the material still looks really, really good under just like a jeweler's loupe. It's a fun place to stop at. Speaking of the history of things, we put up podcast number 17 this week of the previously Rockhounding podcast, where we read Rock and Gem magazine from October 1979. And one of the topics in here government and the Rockhound closing off the backcountry, it was kind of interesting. Me and Sarah, we basically had the same take on it. It's an article written by a BLM ranger, and the title of the article and the actual substance of the article don't really line up. That's kind of the theme here with Rock and Gem, at least from the 70s, is they're a little deceptive in how they sell articles. The government and the Rockhound closing off the backcountry is primarily about kind of how you can figure out what public land is which, you know, because there's different management, different managers of public lands. And the closing off part is purely about the closing off of illegal roads, which, you know, the way it's kind of phrased here, or like the narrative of it, is that the government's coming in and being like, no more rockhounding there. And really what it's mostly been is, hey, there's a road going into this area and people just started kind of driving off into the desert and making their own roads. And we're going to block them off with like rocks, let's say, because this is a no motorized area. Now, I know for some people, you might be like, well, public lands, I should be able to do whatever I want on public lands. And other people kind of understand the keeping your vehicle on a dedicated roadway. You know, I lean towards keeping vehicles on dedicated roadways and not just like freewheeling it off into the middle of nowhere, except for areas where they're like, yeah, whatever, like you just drive wherever. So I kind of get it, but the implication here, of course, is Rockhounds did something wrong and now the government's coming in and closing it off, which that's not really the case most of the time. I think a lot of people would probably agree with this whole idea of keeping areas that are free of roads still kind of free of roads, and you can walk in or ride a mountain bike in and go do your rockhounding and then come back. I mean, I think everybody kind of has a spot that they like, where if you saw people just driving around like on quads and dirt bikes and stuff, it would be less enjoyable. So I get it. I've found it incredibly fascinating, though, to really read some of these old magazines and books and publications. Very, very educational for me. Learning a lot from this stuff. This past week, oh man, here we go. So I cut a lot of Lucky Strike Thunder eggs, and I threw out a decent amount of Lucky Strike Thunder eggs. Now, when I say throw out, it's not like I put them in the garbage can, right? Like I put them in my junk rock pile, and a lot of people had a lot of problems with that. You know, they were like, a lot of the comments were, I should be using them, I should be donating them to people, I should be selling them. And I thought I could talk a little bit about some of those aspects of rockhounding. Share my own personal opinions, subject to change, of course. This right here, for me to go through and polish every single one of these halves, as an example, would require a lot of my time, okay? So a lot of time would be spent polishing up these guys. And I don't have infinite time. So for me, this is a lot. So when I'm high grading, which I thought it was interesting to show kind of my high grading process, because I don't see many people sharing their high grading process. So I thought, you know, like, I would like to see how people take a pile of rock and go through it and be like, this is good and this is why I think it's good. I can tell you kind of the opposite today, though. Why I think some of the Thunder eggs that I chose to pass on, if you will, are bad for me. They would be bad to give to somebody, and I would definitely not feel comfortable selling any of these. So as a prime example here, here's a Thunder egg that I cut. So it's a little hard to tell in the camera, but we have two cracks running through this, and they're going like that, okay? So we have, on the side, we have a crack going this way and a crack going that way. So we kind of want to split out into three pie pieces. Currently, it's being held together just fine, in that it's not broken apart, and when we get it wet, it does look good, but as you just saw, it had some significant cracks. If you try to spend your time working this, it's very likely that those cracks are going to get worse. You could get heat fracturing. You could work polish into it, and it's just not, in my opinion, a good use of time. Other comments were tumbling off all of the rhyolite. Rhyolite's actually pretty hard. Not as hard as the agate core, but when you think about it, now what? You're going to have these long, flat, rectangular pieces of thunder egg if you break it out into like a pie, the pie pieces on the side. And stuff like that generally doesn't tumble up well. So that's why I look at that, I'm like, it's not worth my time when I have this big pile of just Lucky Strike eggs, let alone all of the other rocks. Another one would be this one. So we have a crack, and then this part right here will never ever take a polish. So really you have what, like a piece of agate there, the size of my fingertip, another piece there, and then that is going to probably have some fractures because that looks like that crack goes down at an angle. And it looks good wet, right? But like if you're never going to polish it, the size of material that you're going to get out of it isn't going to be significant. Well, I look at this as a rock to toss. And when I give rocks to people, I want them to be nice. I don't want to be like, here's my stuff that I don't like. That doesn't seem nice, and it doesn't seem nice to give rocks or sell rocks that are clearly fractured up. And now, I know a lot of people will sell fractured up and broken material, and people do buy it. I question, though, how satisfied those people are long term. You know, there's a relatively well-marketed thunder egg claim, and almost everything that they sell is entirely cracked up. And I'm like, what are you really doing with that? You know, I mean, I guess in theory, you could take a piece like this and get tiny little cabs out of that for like a earring, perhaps. I mean, you could, but there's always something that a person could do with this stuff. But I like the idea of dealing with this stuff as a primary, you know? I mean, let's face it, sometimes lapidary is not easy. Sometimes you're working rocks that are susceptible to fracture and just have problems. So to do stuff that is already problematic is extra challenging. Now, I could sell Lucky Strike eggs. And this is a subject that we've talked about here on the channel in the past, about selling rocks, the dirty little secret of the rock world, which is many people illegally collect rocks and then sell them. And hear me out. So this is a feed egg. I paid for these, therefore I can sell them. If I go out to BLM and I pick up this piece of petrified wood here, right? This came off of public lands, collected for my own display and enjoyment in a display case. Legally, ethically, in my opinion, well, you shouldn't be selling it legally because the rules for collecting on public land is for personal use only. And ethically, it doesn't, it's not rockhounding, okay? It's illegal mining is what you're doing when you go out and collect material on public lands and sell it. Now, people will be like, well, it's public lands, I can do whatever I want. To those people, I would say, how would you feel about an illegal logging operation? See my point? What about that beautiful area out in the woods that you love? Would you be okay with somebody going out and cutting down all the trees illegally? Just for their own person, just to sell them, you know? We could play this game. You know, the idea is that things don't get over-collected if they're for personal use only. I think that a lot of rockhounds that do sell the stuff that they collect, they kind of taint the hobby for themselves. They kind of ruin it, right? Because they're no longer collecting for their own enjoyment of collecting rocks and learning and engaging in this hobby. They're collecting with the selling of the material in mind. And maybe they still enjoy it the same. It seems like for a lot of people, they start going to the same spot too much. They start over collecting just so that they can sell rocks. And I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't sit super well with me. And I get it. Like, people want money. Everybody has to eat. I need to make money to be able to eat. But I don't know. I feel like there's a way that you can do it ethically. I mean, if the material's there in abundance and you want to sell it, stake a claim, go extract all of it, and then let the claim expire. And there you go. But they want the reward of having a bunch of stuff to sell without doing the work to make it legal. Just my take. I might be wrong in my take here. One of the things that I like about the Saturday night special is that, well, we can chat and you can give me your opinions as well, because many of you are very, very, very smart folks, and I learn a lot. I learn a lot from you guys. But just real quick, side by side. I mean, there's a clear difference between a keeper and not a keeper. So maybe you could show me your high grading process. I would love to see it. Oh, one other thing that happened this past week, which I think is very cool, and it's definitely planted a seed in my mind. The Lakeside Gem and Mineral Club, they showed one of our videos at their meetings, which to me is incredibly cool to think about. They're down in the Tri-Cities in Eastern Washington. They showed our video at the Stone Rose fossil dig site up in Republic, Washington. And the seed that it has planted, thanks to Patrick down there, is doing some presentations. So I think that's something I'm going to try to spend a little bit of time on, is what would it be like to go and do in-person presentations on some of these subjects. I think it would be kind of fun. At the very least, I will develop some presentations that I could share here on the YouTube channel. So, well, I think that about sums up what I have this week for you. Thanks for coming by and hanging out with me in the shop. And we'll leave this one here. Y'all take care, and I'll catch you on the next video.